Hey, this is Brandon McManus, Denver Broncos Super Bowl champion, and you listen to The Scoop on alscoop.com.
Welcome back to The Scoop, everybody. This is Season 5, Episode 24. I'm John DeCarlo, joined by Sam Cohn. No Sam Newman, no Graham Foley. Kyle Gallus is still out.
Just a dynamic duo today.
Yes. Kyle's still out being a father. Bit of a somber episode this week, as you guys know by now. Unfortunately, Kobe Bryant passed away at the age of 41 in a tragic helicopter accident that claimed the lives of 9 people. It's a big national story, but it affects Temple too. It affects so many people here locally in Philadelphia. Anybody who went to Lower Merion High School, even if they're just recent graduates, but this has been the biggest story in the United States right now.
I can't even remember there was
excluding politics, but
I can't even remember there was a time that a story like this took over the internet. I mean, you look on Twitter the last 3 days, it's entirely Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, and we're gonna play an interview for you guys in a second. We're recording this on a Tuesday. Had the chance to, there was media availability for Aaron McKie today. First piece of what we're going to play for you is just Aaron McKie talking about Kobe Bryant. Now, Aaron played against him, of course, in that 2001 NBA Finals, and then finished his last 2 years of his career with the Lakers and got to be Kobe's teammate.
2006, 2007.
Yeah, and Aaron, like so many people in the city of Philadelphia, in this area, so many people, whether you're listening to different radio stations, both local, national, have these stories, these Philly stories, where people saw Kobe coming up through the ranks, and he would go to some open gyms, whether he was working out at what used to be called Philadelphia Textiles, at McGonigal Hall, at Temple, and some people would look around like, who is that? And they would say, that's Joe Bryant's kid. And he was long and wiry, and you'll hear Aaron talk about that. So many other people have shared these stories, and he was in high school dunking on and getting past.
He started playing Sunny Hill League when he was 12.
Yeah.
So that was 1990.
Yeah, and the Sunny Hill games were so much fun to go to. It's the Sunny Hill League was to Philadelphia like AAU basketball's taken over everything, but John Hardnett, the late John Hardnett, who was to call him just an AAU coach wouldn't really be doing him justice. He was like a skills coach, a mentor to so many people. He mentored guys like Aaron, so many Temple people, so many other pros. But yeah, Kobe would play in that league, and to go down to McGonigal Hall and watch some of these games, or even just watch some of these events, or watch some of these workouts was an event. But I think for weeks and months, we're just going to hear more stories coming out of the woodwork about, I played against Kobe in a pickup game, or I knew his family, I knew this. And so we are going to talk a lot of Kobe Bryant on this podcast. Again, not just to go national with this and take away the Temple focus. We're talking about Kobe because of his impact and because it is tied to Temple. His sister Sharia Bryant played volleyball here, as some of our middle-aged or older listeners will remember and recall. Sam, where were you when you got the news? What was your reaction? Obviously, no one was elated about this. It was a really tragic, sad thing. But where were you when you got the news?
So,
what were your thoughts?
Early Sunday afternoon, I was just sitting in bed. I was actually doing homework for your class.
There you go. Sports writing.
I really thought about texting you and saying, I don't know if I can do this homework. Like, this is heavy. But so I'm sitting in bed just doing my homework, and my roommate actually, it's happened a couple times on a much smaller scale of he'll get notifications from TMZ with much smaller stories that they break before everybody else. And so he texts me from downstairs, and he says, or he gives me a call and says, I think it's possible Kobe Bryant might have just passed away in a helicopter crash somewhere out in LA. And I said, listen, I know TMZ's been right before, but not this one. There's no way. It was so bone chillingly, caught me off guard. It felt like the world stopped spinning for a minute. That's really what it felt like. That's the best way I can describe it. And it didn't feel real, but he told me that. And I go on Twitter immediately. I check. I don't see a single thing. We talk about it for a minute or two about could this be real? Where is he? I know he just played in Philadelphia, or excuse me, LeBron just passed him on the all-time scoring list in Philadelphia the other night. Neither of us thought Kobe was there, but we weren't sure. And then I checked Twitter again, this is 2 minutes after the TMZ thing, and I'm seeing tweets from people I've never heard of, never met, whatever, on the latest under Kobe Bryant helicopter, and it's all there's no way this is real. Anyone but Kobe Bryant. Like, this can't be real. And that's all 8 seconds ago, 15 seconds ago, 23 seconds ago. So this just happened, and it slowly started to unravel, and it just didn't feel real. It really felt like, what is going on here? This can't be real. Like, this is Kobe Bryant. And I know we talked a little bit about it last night. Like, Kobe Bryant's impact means so much more than basketball. What he was to young basketball players, to basketball players around him that he played against, played with, was close with, his impact goes far beyond that, and it goes far beyond the NBA. It goes beyond borders. He was one of the first NBA players that really started making trips to China a regular thing. He really helped expand the game globally, which is a huge part of the NBA's success today. But I think the thing that Kobe did that will have the largest lasting part of his legacy is the fact that he instilled this culture and he instilled this idea of working hard. So much of, that Mamba mentality, like, that was him. And you'll hear basketball players across the country talk about, Nate Pierre-Louis talked about it today, 4 a.m. workouts were because of Kobe Bryant. I was talking on my radio show the other day, when I was in high school, there were plenty of nights where it was like 30 degrees out, pitch black, and I'd go out layered up and I'd work on my ball handling in the dark under a dim light in my driveway, and that was 10,000% credit to Kobe Bryant. That's like who he was. He had that mentality. He was an unbelievable basketball player. I can't say I modeled my game after him, or a lot of people did because he's a pure scorer, but
you might be playing Division I
exactly,
basketball.
Yeah, I was not playing college basketball.
But you understand the game very well.
Yeah, thank you. But it was that idea of not just basketball, but beyond in life, in any career, in any path, whether it's schoolwork, whether it's beyond. It's just this mentality of putting absolutely everything you have into it, and an unrelenting, like, never being satisfied mentality of needing to be the absolute best.
Yeah, Saturday night was something else. You like you said, you and I were talking about this last night. It's funny. I stayed late at the Palestra to write, wrote a little bit longer, knowing full well that people don't read as much on game stories after a loss. But I felt like I wanted to include some stuff from Steve Donahue from Penn on the loss, and him talking about Aaron, and just providing some context. And this is a 10-9 team. They're in a tailspin. Wrote a little bit longer. I was the last person to leave, media person to leave the Palestra. I walk up, and for those of you who have gone to the Palestra so many times, you know that on the main concourse they have these wonderful tributes to so many of the top high school players, some college teams, even players from like Maryland, the Big Five teams, people who have come to the Palestra to play. And so I came out, you make a right, so I leave the building, the door closes behind me, and then you make another right to go down this sidewalk and then out, make a left toward the parking garage where they have us park for the media. And I kind of kicked myself because I wanted to walk around that concourse and take a couple pictures because it's a beautiful display. And Kobe was literally one of the last people that I thought of when I was leaving, because those of you who have been there, and I think several people have posted the picture on social media this week, they have this wonderful tribute to Kobe, and I'm assuming the picture was taken from the district playoff game that Lower Merion and Coatesville played. I went to that game when I was a student at Temple in college.
I've heard legendary things about that game.
It was just fun. I mean, the Palestra's been packed hundreds and hundreds of times over the years for so many games, but I remember getting some of my friends together and saying, look, Kobe's playing, Richard Hamilton's playing. I can't remember if Temple was recruiting him at the time or if he had already committed to UConn, but at one point Temple was really in it for Rip Hamilton. That would have been amazing for the Temple program. And I had an interest in watching Rip play because he played at Coatesville, our rival high school. I grew up in Downingtown. And then, of course, there was Kobe. And we got a ticket, got into the Palestra, and it was awesome. It was packed, just a different kind of insanity, different kind of atmosphere, but really great. And so I'm walking out, and you can see through the glass, you see this image of Kobe kind of floating through with his number 33. That's the number he wore in high school, right? 33, his Lower Merion uniform. I'm like, damn, I wanted to take a picture of that.
It's a gorgeous picture.
I wanted to take a picture of that. And he can't get back into the building. I looked about that, and I thought about him, and I just was thinking about that game. It was just a fun time in college to just get on the subway. You're young, and see the Palestra and introduce people to the Palestra. It was just a lot of fun. And I thought about him. And then I drove home, completely forgot that the Sixers were playing the Lakers. To get home, and I start talking to my wife. She has something else on TV. I'm like, I got to watch the last half, the first half, and the second half of the Sixers game. Do you care? She's like, no, I've been watching TV. Go ahead, put on what you want to put on. And to say that my wife and I don't have long conversations about the NBA would be an understatement. I mean, she understands like some of it, knows who Kobe Bryant is, knows who LeBron James is. And we just started talking about him because, and again, I slept on this too. I had no idea and just must have missed the fact that LeBron was on the doorstep of passing him. So then he passes him. We're like, wow. And Chelsea and I started talking about Kobe and, you know, what I remembered of him. I was like, this is really cool. And we're just talking about him a lot. And the next day I drive out to visit my parents and see my brother and my nephews. And I'm sitting on the couch with my nephews. And I think it was I found out through our group chat.
Oh,
Kyle
really?
posted,
Yep.
Kyle said something. I was like,
Yeah.
no way. And
I broke
that.
the story to a couple of friends because I immediately texted like 3 or 4 different group chats with some of my friends. Like, I think Kobe Bryant might have just died. And they're all like, you're kidding. Where did you even hear this?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, everybody, you know, again, I almost feel guilty talking about it because I'd never met him. He's not a friend.
But
he's
that's
not a family,
the craziest part
but
about
he
it.
impacts so many people. And it's just, it's unreal. It's just heartbreaking. And you sit there and you cry and you're like, I never even met the guy, but I respect him for how great of a basketball player he was, for owning up to and learning from the mistakes he made in life, because he had some missteps. And I came back from Downingtown. We only live about in Havertown, where we are in Havertown. We're about 10 minutes from Lower Merion High School. And I just wanted to drive by the school to see what activity was going on there. And I think they had just concluded with the press conference and the statement that they made. And that parking lot was just packed. And it's insane. I mean, I still just see the story and I just can't believe it. And I think if I can't believe it, Lord knows what his wife and you know, to lose a daughter in this, and it's just insane. It's just a real shame. It's just funny how it was at the forefront of a lot of our minds because of LeBron and the Lakers just being in Philly, and I just think of that picture.
That's a story. You can't write a better script than that.
Yeah,
the way it all went down the night before, like
Mhm.
him, like LeBron passing him, that was his final tweet was congratulating LeBron, which
Yeah.
I'm sure on the inside ate him apart. Like, he did not want to see that happen, but obviously he wishes well for LeBron. But you bring up the point about not even knowing him and how impactful it was, how much it felt, like how much it hurt. So many people have come out like, I never knew Kobe. I never met Kobe. You just watched him from afar, but
Yeah.
you always felt like he was a superhero. He was going to be one of those guys that was going to live forever, and he meant so much to the game of basketball. I can't tell you how many times I binge-watched Detail. Just like the way he saw basketball, the way he understood basketball was so inspiring and so... Like, he never felt like he was satisfied with he knew enough. He always wanted to learn more. He always wanted to talk basketball.
The way he advocated for his daughters too, and the way he advocated
Absolutely.
for women, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard or seen the clip by now where he says, like, you know, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's okay, I don't have a son, and Gigi steps up and says, like, I'm going to carry on his legacy. It's incredible stuff. And
I love the stories of him saying, like, he's a girl dad. He loves having 4 girls. Someone says to him, like, when you should have a guy, you want to carry on the legacy. And, you know, as you mentioned, Gigi was really the one that wanted to.
yeah, and it's again, I you know, I think there's just going to be more stories that come out. There are going to be so many people in Philly who will say, like, I was in McGonigal Hall and I saw him work out with this guy. I, you know, was at a playground in Narberth League and saw him work out there. And even though a lot of fans, quote unquote, turned on him, I always thought this was comical. We were talking about this again last night. In 2001, NBA Finals come around and Kobe says, we're going to carve out the hearts of Philadelphia fans. And yeah, a lot of my friends were like, oh, that's Bush League. How can you say that? I was like, stop it.
Yeah.
If Allen Iverson was not from Virginia and was from LA and he said that, Philly fans would eat it up. Just stop being hypocrites. Like, yeah, I guess you're right. But what we want to play here for you is the entire audio from Aaron McKie's media availability today. Again, Aaron played against him. He played with him, knew of him. I think wrote a wonderful tribute to him.
Came into the league around the same time, 2 years apart.
Mm-hmm. And, well, no, they're Aaron's
96 and 98, right?
But Aaron is 40. How old's Aaron? 47. Kobe's 41. So about six years
But
apart.
Kobe didn't go to high school.
Kobe didn't go to high school. So
excuse me, Kobe didn't go to college.
Yes, so didn't go to college. You're right. I mean, even that, like hearing LaSalle people talk about him, because Joe Bryant played at LaSalle.
Yep.
And at the time,
and then went to Bartram High School in West Philly.
that's where Joe went. Yeah. And so at the time, Kobe had essentially said, well, if I spend a year in college, I'll consider LaSalle because my dad went there, or maybe I'll go to play for Mike Krzyzewski at Duke, and of course he later played for him in the Olympics. But people at LaSalle, I remember, were saying like, this would be flipping our basketball program on its side.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what they've done to Goal Arena, my apologies to LaSalle grads out there, it's a glorified high school gym. And if Kobe had gone there for like one season.
I've been there once, yeah.
I mean, yeah, you covered the game for us this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine if like Joel Embiid decided, I'm going to go to Temple for a year. I mean, like, it's people, like, there was just even a buzz about that.
I mean, even that's what when Ben Simmons chose to go to LSU.
Yeah.
That turned out LSU didn't even make the tournament, but that was
Sure.
like that put LSU on the map that year.
Yeah, and he just created so much of a buzz in this area at a time when social media did not exist. And it was just start off like Joe Bryant's kid. And you talk to people, man, like, man, you just got to see him play. You got to see him play. And, even a student here, Dan Wilson, Buzz, like he's years younger than Kobe and went to Lower Merion. Is like, it's just,
he feels like just as much as anything.
yeah,
it's having that connection.
Yeah, it's something else. So Aaron talked a lot today for almost about 10 minutes about his relationship with Kobe, shared a couple great stories. So we're going to play this for you here, and then we will react to it on the other side.
How are you doing with all of this, just in terms of processing Kobe's life?
I'm hanging. It's difficult on a number of levels for me. As a Philadelphian, we lost, one of our greats. Lower Merion is impacted by this, and just our entire surrounding area. And it's very unfortunate. Selfishly, you guys are here because of Kobe, and we're talking about Kobe. But I think about his wife. I think about his kids. I think about the others that were impacted in this just tragic accident. So, I got kids, as well, and that's my heart. I just been struggling with this, the last couple of days.
You played with him, you played against him.
Mm-hmm.
You heard all about him before you even got to the NBA. It's probably hard to narrow it down to a few, but what goes through your mind when you think about him?
Just a great competitor. He was just a winner in every sense. He wanted to win at everything that he was involved in, from philanthropy, from basketball to being a producer. He wanted to be the best at everything that he was doing, and he studied it. And it's no surprise that he was successful on the court, and there's no surprise that he was going to be successful off the court with his endeavors that he was venturing into.
When did you first hear about him? I would imagine that probably John or one of these guys probably said, hey, you got to see Joe's kid play.
Yeah, we in Philadelphia, we all grew up playing in the Sunny Hill League. And so you pretty much knew about everybody that came through the city or that was, a pretty good basketball player. When I was here at Temple, he would come up and play basketball. He was in junior high school at the time. He would come up and play basketball with us, and we saw right away he was going to be a pretty good basketball player.
I know it's good to know him off the court, and what was that relationship like?
It was probably more than what people saw of Kobe, because he was guarded. He wore that mask as a basketball player where he wanted to be that villain, and he didn't mind people thinking of him as being so. But off the court, he was a deep person. He was carefully thought out, and he had everything scripted. His life scripted. What kind of basketball player he wanted to be, what he wanted to do after he was finished playing basketball. So he was a brilliant mind in that sense, and I think that's what's misunderstood about him.
I know it might be tough for you, but
struggle with this, guys who come idolize.
We talked about it yesterday for about 10-15 minutes, and for me it was Dr. J, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan were the guys that we idolized. Those are the guys that we saw, and Michael passed the torch on to Kobe. And so for this generation of basketball players, he was the guy. He was the guy that these kids idolized, and some of them was just saying how, when they were growing up, they had posters of Kobe all over their room and things like that. And they were just trying to digest it all and saying why and how and all those things. So it was a tough day for all of us.
you never think something like this was going to happen. What was that initial moment of shock like for you? Maybe more as a dad and as his friend as well?
I'm still in shock, because for us, being in the sports world, or being fans, when you love the game or you really like somebody as a player and you like their work, you selfishly say you want them to be around forever. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen in his case. His legacy will remain as a basketball player because there's tons of footage and videos and championships and things that we can go back and reference to. But the legacy as a father, he was still writing that. The legacy of a husband, the legacy of a community man and philanthropist, those things, that legacy will be able to continue, but without his involvement. So that's the tough part of it for me when I think about it.
Can you take us back to the Sunny Hill days and the days when he was practicing here against you guys? Like, how good was it?
It was really good. He was just this wiry, thin kid, and the Kobe that we all got a chance to see, or I got a chance to play against, was the one who matured in, and I don't want to say the Michael Jordan-esque type player because he was Kobe. He was different, but there was some similarities. But he was Kobe. But back then he was wiry, he was athletic, he was fast, he was strong, and he was just a flashy player. And not saying that he wasn't flashy throughout his professional career, but he had all the tricks and all the moves, and any time he got an opportunity to get to the basket, he was trying to dunk on somebody. So that's the Kobe that I first saw and witnessed.
Can you compare that to the championship version you saw in the NBA Finals?
He was more grounded at that time, where it was just, when you're getting double teamed a lot, he figured out different ways where he would have to score the ball. So it was 15 feet and in, get the ball, face up, see where the defense is at. Drive right, drive left, fade away left, fade away right, shot fake. So that's the player that he evolved into, and that's the player that allowed him to play for 20 years.
Your favorite Kobe story?
I think it was more of a mental thing. It was being out on the floor and you come and you stand next to him. Hey, Kobe, what's happening, man? How you doing? How's the family, man? How's your mom? How's your dad? And how's your sisters? And he would do this. And keep playing. And I was just like, wow, you can't rattle this guy. And you do things like that in the game to just try to get an edge, to just try to take somebody's focus away. And so he would just look at you as if you wasn't there, look right through you. After the game, he'd come up to you, hey man, my dad is good, my mom is good, my sisters, and it was just like, wow, you could have said that during the game, but it was his mental focus and how he was just so locked in to the game and just wanting to win. Everything mattered to him, and he never cheated the game of basketball, never.
How much were you guys matched up against each other in the 01 series? I know guys rotate and everything, but how much did you find yourself?
A lot. I mean, we matched up a lot. But, a guy like him, you just wanted to slow him down. You want those type guys to have an inefficient game. He's going to get enough looks at it where he's going to have a good one. You just don't want it to be a great one. And unfortunately for us, after that first game, it wasn't a good one for him. But after that, he played pretty well.
What was it like to end your career professionally? You head out there
I just got to see the inside of him. I think you heard about the legendary workout and how he took care of his mind and how he took care of his body, and I got the chance to see it from the inside, and everything about it was true. He's just diligent in his work, particular at how he did things, particular at how he ate, and he would get in 2 hours before and train, lift weights, stretch, massage, and then get ready for practice. And really that's how you last for 20 years, because you take care of your mind and your body. And you also have to have the physical gifts, and you have to have the talent. And so not only did he have those things, but he had the drive and the desire to hang around and play at a high level for 20 years. Not many guys can do that. That's really hard, and I admire that in what he did.
Did you ever pick your brain for your advice when he was growing up?
We talked, and he just said, how did y'all do it? He was like, man, y'all was some tough dudes, man, that just got after it. And he was like, and I told him we were comfortable with who we were and how we went about it. And he respected that. He respected guys that really worked at it and loved the game and appreciate the game.
That drive and determination carried over into the Olympics in 2008. Because if you look at it, right, Team USA had just come off a pretty bad loss. He's part of what's called the Redeem Team, and everybody around it said he was the guy and the guy that turned it around. Do you think that impact now is still being felt? Because guys like LeBron, D-Wade, they say that he taught them how to approach it.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure at those practices, at least from what I hear, he was grabbing guys before practice. After practice, come on, let's play one-on-one. You LeBron James, or you Dwayne Wade, or you supposed to be this, you supposed to be that. I want to test it, and I want to see. And he made guys uncomfortable in a good way, where you were embarrassed if you let a guy that's been around in the league much longer than you outwork you. So it forced those guys' hand, and it forced others around him to be better at their craft, to work on their craft. And that's what he brought to the table, his leadership, his demanding of excellence, and his will to win. Yeah.
Thanks guys.
Thanks. Yep.
Right, so some great stuff there from Aaron, who's one of just hundreds and hundreds of people who could share stories about Kobe Bryant. He's got that great story there where he asks him, he talks about talking to him on the court and says, "Kobe, how's your family doing?" He just stares at him.
Yeah, he's got his
Doesn't
hands on his knees. He's got a stone cold face. He turns to Aaron McKie. Doesn't make any sort of facial expression. Doesn't say anything. Turns right back. He's focused on the task at hand. He was a different beast when it came to stepping on that court. I've heard thousands of coaches say over the years, when you can be buddy with anybody, because now in the world of AAU, in the growing game of basketball, everybody knows everybody from the area.
Right.
Everybody knows everybody they're playing, and you can be boys before, you can be boys after. But when you step on that court, you got to turn into a different beast. That's a different mentality, and Kobe really embodied that.
Yeah, and Aaron you heard him talk about, I asked him how many times, yes, people rotate, you try to, do what you can to slow Kobe down. He said, yeah, sure, we were matched up against each other a lot, but you just try to slow him down. He said, unfortunately, we didn't. And Kobe and Shaq were just so dominant in that series. The Sixers took game one, as anybody around Philadelphia remembers, the Tyronn Lue game, Iverson stepping over him, and Philly fans were saying, oh my God, we got a chance. We stole a game in LA, and then the Lakers pulled off four straight. And but some great stuff from Aaron there. You talked too about, you think of the clip the part of the clip that you talked about where he talks about like Kobe being the generational guy for this group of players.
Exactly. Yeah. He was talking about his players and what it means to them, and Kobe was their guy. Aaron McKie mentioned, I have the quote here. He said, "For me, it was Dr. J, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan were guys that we idolized. For this generation of basketball players, he was the guy that these kids idolized." Talking about Kobe Bryant, like Kobe Bryant was my generation, and for a lot of my generation, you're either a Kobe guy or you're a LeBron guy. But for the most part, like Kobe was really that guy. LeBron is in the latter half of his career. He's having the second act. He's really doing a lot off the court. But for young guys, like it was Kobe, because Kobe could score the basketball and Kobe could do it all.
Do you have, I know this is water cooler talk at its best, but do you have a top five in your mind? Top five NBA players NBA players of all time, where Kobe ranks in this? We say this.
Where do I think he ranks on the GOAT list, or who I like my personal top five?
I'd say the GOAT list.
I'd say the GOAT list is LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Bill Russell, and
Russell over Wilt. Not
absolutely Russell over Wilt in every sense of the word.
We never saw either one of these guys play, but
both before our time.
Oh, sure.
We can get into that another time.
Yeah.
I'm happy to have that debate.
Yeah.
Number 5. I don't know. Who do you like for number 5? It's just once you get past the top 3 or 4, it's all so subjective.
It's all. The whole thing is so subjective.
You just got to appreciate greatness at the end of the day.
I go, for me, Jordan number 1. I go Kobe 2. Wilt 3. LeBron James 4.
Wow.
And I go Bird 5th.
Okay, yeah.
With all due respect,
again,
I
like Bird 5th.
But Bill Russell, again, not that I ever saw him play live. Fantastic player. I think Larry Bird sometimes doesn't get enough credit. I'm sure you read a ton about him growing up in New England. He was a tough MFer on the floor. He did not take anybody's crap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always talked about I'm a kid from French Lick, Indiana, with a huge chip on my shoulder. Nobody ever thought I could play, and he was tough.
I have this one really vivid memory that I just thought of right now. I was at an AAU tournament, and some mom asked me oh, who's your favorite basketball player? And I was like, I don't really know. Who do you think's the best basketball player of all time? I was like, I don't really know. You could argue a couple different ways. Or she goes, well, is it LeBron? I was like, I don't think so. What about Kobe? I'm not sure. Michael Jordan? And she's like, what is it, Larry Bird? And I was like, why you just got to throw I was maybe 12 or 13, and I was like, why can't we just appreciate all of them? I'd probably say LeBron, but at the end of the day, you got to appreciate greatness.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan was insane. And so many people, again, there are guys that have covered the NBA for a long time who are much more qualified to talk about this than I am. But you're how old?
20.
You're 20. I'm 43. For us growing up, Jordan was everything. The posters, the shoes, every time you go to the mall, it's like, I can't afford those Jordans. I'm just going to look at them. Looking at all the Nike posters and the dunk contest and stuff. And then Kobe really emulated his game. One of the things I really respect about Kobe, and again, I've obviously never met either one of these guys personally, there's so much Michael Jordan in what Kobe did. I think Kobe was a lot more engaged, and Michael Jordan has a right to do whatever he wants to do with his life, but there were times where Jordan's been kind of a little bit more of a recluse, or he's just sits around
say,
smoking cigars and gambling, and I think
great golfer too.
Yeah.
The one thing I will add to this discussion of like Michael Jordan versus Kobe Bryant versus LeBron James is they all bring very different things to the game of basketball. You look at a guy like LeBron James was really one of the first guys that could play and guard every position. Michael Jordan took no BS from anybody, and he could take over a game in an instant. He could take over any game against any team whenever he wanted. And Kobe Bryant was the kind of guy who you could argue is the best one-on-one basketball player to ever walk the face of the earth. The way he could score the ball, he could really do it all.
I just think the way Kobe shoots and the way Jordan shot, similar delivery, you could tell Kobe emulated so much of what Jordan did. You could go back and forth, like I said, their entire podcast devoted to this. I think they're both better shooters than LeBron is, but then like the younger generation might say, LeBron hasn't had that much talent around him.
LeBron has a better field goal percentage for his career than Michael Jordan.
Right.
So, I mean, yes, I agree with you. I think Michael Jordan, I would if I have to put the ball in someone's hand in the final seconds, I'll probably give it to Jordan over LeBron, but it's a different game. Hand checking, it's... We could have this debate for hours.
Yeah. Obviously, we're going to get into this Temple basketball team as well.
I hear they have a game coming up,
So if you're listening to this, obviously on Wednesday morning when this podcast comes out, Temple's 10-9, playing a strikingly similar 10-9 UConn team with a team that actually has a half game behind them in the conference standings. After the whole media pack dissipated this morning, it was really just Graham and I went back and talked to Aaron about the team, what's going on with them right now. We'll talk later in this podcast, like, how do you get the season fixed? Can you fix it? They've lost, 6 of their last 7, 3 in a row. Saturday's game against Penn was as ugly as it could be. They missed their first 12 shots. They didn't score for 9 minutes. And yet, Penn's an average of enough team. I'm not trying to take anything away from Temple, where that game was still winnable at the end. By now, like the missed layups, the Monty Scott's missed layup right there at the end. That could have cut it from 6 to 4.
Yep.
They were right in it.
5-point swing or 4-point swing down the other end. When UConn scores.
Or Penn scores, you mean?
Excuse me, Penn scores.
So there's a lot going wrong for this team right now. Yes, some games in the future coming up where Temple could, boost its net rankings, but let's face it, they got it short of going on a big win streak here and beating Villanova in the process. They have to win the conference tournament to get into the NCAA tournament right now. But Graham and I basically just walked back over to Aaron and said, hey, you want to talk more about the season? We had a chance to talk to him about updates on Damian Dunn, Trey Perry, just the team in general. Josh Pierre-Louis, you'll hear Aaron say it will be a go for the UConn game after being sick and missing Saturday's game. So here's our conversation with Aaron, just talking about where they are with the season and moving forward.
How do you guys approach UConn and kind of just getting things back on track?
Well, it's two desperate teams, really. Both of us are just trying to fight for a win, and I think you could put all the stuff up on the board that you want. What it's going to boil down to who's the tougher team and who wants it the most. And we're going into their home court to play those guys, and they've been playing hard. They've been in every game. Just came down to some 5-6 minute stretches in games where they just lost control of it, and so it's going to be a good test for us on the road, and sometimes going out on the road help you bring the team together a little bit.
What the last couple of days of practice been like?
It's been good. Just trying to keep the morale up, keep the spirits up, and keep these guys confident, and just enjoying the game of basketball. And we talked about Kobe yesterday. Just keep it in perspective. I said, guys, we get a chance to come in and play basketball every day. Get a chance to be a student athlete, go to class, be in college, play basketball, compete. And that's like, think about this. One of the guys that you idolized, who was still who's continuing to try to give to the game in other ways, will not be here to do that. So honor that. And everything that we talk about, hard work, toughness, commitment, consistency, that's who he was. You know, when we talk about toughness and winning from the neck up and going on the road and winning on the road, that's toughness, and that's everything that he embodied and that he was about. Let's honor that. You know, he's a guy that never cheated the game. Let's honor that. If you say you loved him and he was your idol, let's honor that. Let's try to take some of Kobe and put his DNA inside of you and see if we can bring that to the court every day.
When it comes, some of the stuff like on Saturday was just missed shots.
Yeah,
and is it just a simple thing where you just say you just got to get out there, because it wasn't necessarily like a scheme thing or like an accident
and that's really what it's been. It's been just, and I talked to you about this 2 weeks ago maybe. You just got to make shots, and I felt we never throughout the season put a complete game together. It's if we're making shots, we're not defending, and we're holding on down the stretch to win. If we're defending, we're not making shots. If we're rebounding the ball, we're turning it over. If we're not turning it over, we're not rebounding the ball. So it's always something with us. And I'm just waiting for us to just put that one complete game together, you know, and we're going to have to do it collectively.
Did you guys express any frustration with that, maybe privately to you, about how they have to put it all together?
Privately, I do. I have to come here and you know, I'm the face of it, so to show them that I'm confident and I believe in them. And just, you know, you get back at it and just try to reiterate to them how much I believe in them and how much confidence that I have in these guys, and just keep moving. We just got to keep pushing forward, and we got to face adversity. We got to look adversity in the eyes and face it and try to push through it.
Was there any morale dip even before the Kobe news, just after the end game? What was the mood of the team?
They were upset. They were visibly upset when we came in the locker room at the end, and just talked to them about practice habits, and if you want to win, you know, you got to prepare.
I guess Josh is okay to play tomorrow?
Yeah, I believe so. He practiced today. It was his first time back, so he should be a go.
Obviously, you spend a lot of time with everyone on the team, but you pay like even just a little bit of time. We see are you on him a little bit harder?
No, it's just trying to get him to understand the game. Just trying to get him to understand the game, just to slow it down. Like he has athletic gifts, but I got to get him to be able to be ready to go and play up at UConn and play against their pressure and be poised and make the right decisions. That's the important part. And they're young and they want to be good and they want to be good overnight, but it don't work like that. And I understand, but you know, it's a process for him, and I got to get him to understand that sooner than later.
How does he take it? Like your feedback, your coaching.
He takes it. He takes it. I think he does a good job of taking it. But you know, with these kids now, it's just they think you're getting on them for all the wrong reasons, like you're giving them all the wrong information. You're trying to give them the right information, and I don't have all the answers, but I did play this game, and I have a good understanding of it, and I know it's important. And I just want him to understand what's important for the team first and what's important for us to be successful. And for him just to come out and run the team, take care of the ball, and defend at a high level. And everything else will come, you know, with that.
Any requests to see Damon's out of the boot? Have you guys made any decisions on him this season?
No, he just started trying to move around a little bit today, actually. Yesterday he did a little bit. Today he did a little bit more, and so as we'll continue to evaluate and see where he's at.
How's Dre doing?
He's out of his boot. He's out of his boot as well. Just a weird injury that he had, like some type of ligament under the toe. So he's out of his boot, and I'm sure it's probably going to be, I would say day to day, but it's probably closer to a week, maybe week or two. I'm not going to sit here and play doctor with you guys.
Yeah.
All right, so as you heard Aaron say there, he's right. Two struggling teams that are really trying to get right here. UConn is 10-9. They're 1-5 in conference play. They're 0-5 on the road, which doesn't mean a damn in this game because they're playing this one up at Gamble. As you guys might know, they play some of their games at Gamble Pavilion and Stores. They play some of the other games at the XL Center in Hartford. So their 10 wins are comprised of 8 at home and 2 neutral site wins. But
They've also lost 6 of their last 7.
They've lost 6 of the last 7. But let's look at their 4 losses recently. They lost 89-86 to Wichita State in 2 overtimes. Team Temple beat. That's Temple's one lone win in this recent stretch. They lost 61-55 to a 14th-ranked Villanova team. Played them tough down at the Wells Fargo Center. They lost by only 4 at Houston, and they lost by 4 in overtime at Tulsa, a team that completely kicked Temple's butt and then kicked Memphis's butt. So
they like to hang around.
Yeah. So, and there's talent on this roster. Christian Vital is their leading scorer, 14 points a game. He's also the leading rebounder. So at a 6'2" guard who gives up a couple of inches to Nate Pierre-Louis, they're similar to Temple in that their leading rebounder is a guard. They're similar there. James Bouknight, freshman guard on their roster, is averaging a little less than 10 points a game, shooting almost 50% from the floor. He was a 4-star recruit, ranked 84th nationally in the 2019 class. Tyler Polley, 6'9" forward, is averaging 9.5 points a game, just 3.2 rebounds per game. Josh Carlton, he's their 6'11", 260-pound center. He's averaging just a shade under 9 points a game, 6.4 rebounds per game.
That's a big boy.
Yeah, he's big. I'm sure some fans remember seeing him play at Temple last year. So UConn's 4-1 up at Gamble, and they've been crazily inconsistent, if you can say that, just like Temple. They lost at Gamble to St. Joe's, and then 4 days later they beat a 15th-ranked Florida team. So they've had their Jekyll and Hyde moments too.
I think a lot of that comes from they're a very new team. They have 6 new guys. They have a second-year head coach. They're still trying to figure things out the same way Temple basketball is trying to figure things out. I mentioned you before. I read that Hurley, the UConn coach, mentioned one of their guards, Jalen Gaffney, feels to me a lot like Josh Pierre-Louis in terms of a freshman guard who is giving quality minutes. I mean, he's only averaging he's played in 19 games, averaging 13.5 minutes per game. So he's getting some quality minutes, but a lot of it is they're just trying to get him into the rhythm of things because he has a high basketball IQ. He's an aggressive player, but as a freshman, you got to get used to the college basketball game.
So before we get to the mailbag here, we'll ask the question. I asked this to Aaron, asked it to Q after Quentin Rose after the Penn loss. I want to ask you this too.
It's quite the list you're putting me on.
Yeah. How do they fix this? Can this be fixed? And obviously the end goal is to get to the NCAA tournament. Again, that's looking less and less likely. If they don't get again, we're really projecting here. If at the end of the season you're not getting one of the first round buys, you got to win 4 games in 4 days. They've got a tough road ahead of them. How do they fix this in terms of just getting out of this losing streak, putting a string of wins together, and giving fans some hope that this is headed in the right direction and they can just kind of put some juice back into the program?
So I have a couple thoughts and ideas on this. One thing that I'll say that I've harped on a little bit in the last couple of podcasts we've done is half this team isn't playing to their highest capacity.
Right.
They're not playing up to what they played just a month or two ago. You have guys like J.P. Mormon, who came out at the end of last season looking like he could be a legitimate stretch 4 that could knock down a corner 3. He's hit only a handful this year, and he's missed more than his fair share. He's knocked a couple off the side of the backboard. You have a guy like Nate Pierre-Louis, who started through the first 4 games, leading the team in every statistical category, shooting the ball really well in terms of taking smart shots, getting good looks, and knocking them down, being able to finish around the rim, and being unbelievable defensively. He's still a great defender, but offensively he's turning into more of a liability.
A crash ball liability almost.
Quentin Rose, we've talked about, you've mentioned before, has his plays where he looks like he could be a future NBA star, or a future NBA player at that. And he has his plays where he dribbles the ball off his foot, trying to get too fancy, driving through the lane. So a lot of it is the inconsistency and the inability to work at the offensive end. And something I've noticed more so in the last, we talk about they've lost 6 out of their last 7, is just the unsophisticated, if that's a word, unsophisticated half-court sets.
Yeah.
We spent all of the preseason and pretty much all season talking about listening to Aaron McKie talk about wanting to push the ball in transition. They want to space the floor. They want to play fast. They want to turn defense into offense, which is all amazing because that's exactly what basketball is these days. But at the same time, teams are going to zone you up. You're not going to be able to do that on every possession. You're going to see a lot of half-court sets. when they play in the half court, and I did tweet this during the Penn game, like their spacing wasn't great. They're clogging up the lane too much, and that's not every play. I don't want to play coach here. I don't want to play player. I don't want to play GM, whatever. But a lot of their offensive sets, they don't have a ton of off-ball movement, and they're not – what they want to do is facilitate the offense so they can attack and either kick or dump off to get good looks, which is amazing when it works. Their pick-and-roll game hasn't been super effective. But at the end of the day, their offense in the half-court set, and there's a plethora of reasons for this, is not getting the job done. If it does, this is a different team.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination of a lot of stuff, and we have a couple mailbag questions about this and related to this. I thought you were right to point out that the spacing wasn't great. You're right, it's not like that on every possession, but I thought it was strikingly more evident Saturday than it has been in other games. We've talked so many times before about, last year it was a lot of hero ball, like winding down the shot clock, dribble handoff to
And it was
Shiz.
a couple different guys. It wasn't just Shiz.
Right. Sometimes it was Q, but seeing what Shiz could do or seeing what Q could do, it'd be great if Aaron could have one more year as the head coach with Shiz, and you can play that game all along. I wish Fran Dunphy would have gotten a year with Marty Collins or a player like that. But I thought the spacing wasn't great on Saturday because there have been times where I think their spacing has been fine and they've moved the ball around. We've said a million times the ball hasn't stuck to one side of the floor. It's just that if you're not knocking down shots, you're not knocking down shots. On Saturday, they were just, it was just bad.
Yeah.
And then
That's the other thing is that when the shots aren't falling, like you can space the floor as much as you want, but they're not getting amazing looks. One thing I talk about in the article about Jake Forrester, the piece about Jake Forrester that we just posted to the site is his presence inside, his footwork, and the attention he draws can really open up the floor for guys cutting through or even helping space the floor when they have four guys along the perimeter and then Jake Forrester inside because they can feed him inside and he can kick it out. But when you have guys on the perimeter that are attacking in to a handful of guys, you're running into the defense, their mid-range shots are all in traffic.
Yeah.
It was the Penn game. All their mid-range shots were in traffic. They're not getting great looks at the hoop. And one thing I wanted to ask Aaron McKie today recording this on Tuesday, today at the media availability was, I didn't have a chance because I was running late from class, but we've talked about it all season, playing in transition, turning defense into offense. What does he look for in the half-court sets? Like, what are they trying to do differently to throw things at different teams?
Yeah, and I don't know, like there's a lot of, and fans might not like this, but you ask Aaron some of these questions. Like I asked him, like, what's going on with Nate Pierre-Louis? In terms of his overall field goal percentage, he's regressed. I've never thought that Nate was going to be, he's not going to be this prolific three-point shooter. The shooting isn't there, but not only is he not finishing well, he's getting, when we talk about he's not finishing well, sometimes he's just getting some of his shots just rejected. It may sound like I'm dying on this hill. I still think Monty Scott's a pretty good basketball player, but obviously he's got to bounce back from missing a bunny of a layup right there. I don't know how much that gets in his head, but Nate's field goal percentage has regressed.
I wouldn't take too much away from the fact that Nate Pierre-Louis' field goal percentage, he hasn't been shooting the ball super well as of late. He started off really well, and Aaron, you asked Aaron McKie after the Penn game, he said when you play this game long enough, guys are going to go through phases. Nate Pierre-Louis' shot form is not pretty.
No.
He does not have a pretty stroke.
No, but
he fires a line drive. He doesn't bring the ball high enough. He doesn't follow through up. He follows through straight out.
But he's not finishing with authority around the rim, not dunking, not taking the right. I don't know. Again, I don't want to play coach either, but some of the angles he's taking to the basket, you can kind of see it developing. Like you're going to call for a charge. Yeah. Or you're going to get your stuff blocked.
And we've talked about this before. Am I wrong in saying that a lot of the guys on this Temple basketball team, when they get the ball low, aren't, or even driving along the from the wing, they aren't aggressive in attacking the basketball to just draw a foul? Sometimes that's what you got to do. If you don't have a shot in the half court, just attack the hell out of the paint and hope you draw a foul. Just go up strong. But these guys are fading and fading and fading.
I mean, what I would do, again, we say this all the time in the interest of being fair. We're not at every single practice.
Yep.
We're not given the availability to be at every single practice.
I wish we were.
Sure. But two things I would do, and this is just me, the totally removed view. I mean, we cover the team. We see a decent amount of the team. But, and Aaron might disagree with me because you could see, you heard him just there. Seems like he's still caught between, I want Josh Pierre-Louis to do well, but I got to kind of exert my authority and say, hey, you heard him say, but I have played this game. I know a little bit around it, a little bit about it or a lot about it. I personally, again, easy for me to say, I do two things. I would start Josh Pierre-Louis, and when he's healthy enough to come back, I'd put Dre Perry in the starting lineup and see how JP responds to coming off the bench. If you're constantly falling behind and you're getting, roped into slow starts, and I'm not saying that, Dre doesn't have the highest amount of three-point attempts on the team, but his shot's gotten a lot better. Start Dre, start Josh. Your future is not Alani Moore. Now, I'm sure Aaron is caught between this responsibility of I'm not packing it in. I can't call this a rebuilding season. You start off 4-0 and you almost beat Maryland. You think, maybe I do have more pieces than I thought. But I personally don't think, and we'll talk about this again in the mailbag, he doesn't have enough pieces to play the way he wants to play. I mean, we talked about this before, too, leading up to this week. Sure, Alani gets you 14 in the first half against Cincinnati, right? Doesn't get anything in the second half. It looked like
shoot the ball in the second half.
No, because they adjusted.
Yeah.
And the problem is, if teams adjust on him, you're adjusting to a 5'9" guy who is not Trae Young. He's not that fast. He's fast, but he's not that fast. And why not bring Alani off the bench as your change of pace guy? Yes, Josh Pierre-Louis has a lot to learn, but there's a mailbag question about this. He's a ball dominant guard who's quick. Yes, he has a lot to learn, but at this point, see how the temperature of the game changes for good, bad, indifferent, everything in between. Start him at the point, see what happens, and start Dre. Those are two things. Beyond the obvious thing of they got to rebound better. They just need a bolt of confidence. Going up and beating UConn tonight would obviously be huge for them. I know UConn's 10-9. They're not UConn of their glory years, but going up and getting a win at Gamble will be huge for him, just like it was at the end of last year. I think that would be a huge shot in the arm for him.
You really don't want to fall to 500.
No. And then you're just falling farther behind in the conference standings as well, too. Or again, if you realistically want to get to the NCAA tournament, you're just going farther and farther away from any shot at a first-round bye, which they're probably not going to get anyway. But winning up there would be huge for them. But I would make those two tweaks to the starting lineup and see what happens from there.
Don't disagree with you on. I agree with you. Put Dre in when he's healthy, obviously. Well, so what? We don't know when Dre's coming back.
Aaron just said again today, as you heard him say there. I would be shocked if I don't think he's going to play at UConn tonight because he did not practice at all, unless he practiced very early before we got there. Didn't practice. Now it looked like he was out of the boot. He was walking around out of a boot. Now. Damian Dunn was walking around outside of a boot. I still fully think that they're gonna look for a medical red shirt for Damian Dunn, and I would too. I don't think they stand anything to gain from him playing this year. He's a good shooter. I think he has a chance to be a pretty good ball player, but he's not going to save the season for you.
I would stick by when Dre comes back. I agree with you. Put Dre in the starting lineup. See how J.P. Mormon responds because his production is more so he's just not hitting and he's not producing. Alani Moore, I for now at least would keep in the starting lineup, but give Josh more minutes. Cut Alani's minutes down and give Josh more competitive minutes throughout the game. But I'm still keeping Alani Moore just because I think he's a better facilitator offensively. I think he can run an offense better than Josh Pierre. And that just comes that strictly comes to the fact that when he's a confident senior guard, he plays really well. When he's a guy that goes out there and just kind of lazily passes the ball around the perimeter, he's not doing much for you. He's not shooting the ball.
What about the ugly stretch he had Saturday where he puts that one corner three off the side of the backboard, follows his own miss, which was a good first step, and then he just flat out blows that layup too.
Yeah.
I mean, again, he is by far not the only guy who missed layups and missed, Monty missed, Nate missed around the rim, Jake missed a couple of times, I don't know. And again, you might make a good point there, even if Alani starts, but Josh, they're cutting his minutes and Josh is there at the end. And Josh has been there at the end in some games. I just like to see more of what he can do.
I do think Josh is a better defender.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the bright side.
Well, he's taller, he's longer, he's leaner, he's quicker. So those are a couple of things I would do. Let's go to the mailbag here. Several questions. Got one from Twitter, a lot coming in from the message boards. First one here comes from our friend Jack Fatika at the I Believe guy on Twitter. Not one player on this team seems to have taken a step forward this year. In fact, many seem to have regressed, especially J.P. Mormon, Justin Hamilton. I'm assuming he's talking about Alani Moore or Damian Moore. There are two Moores on the team. He just says Moore and Rose, Quentin Rose. This seems to be a theme we've seen for some time. Is it the coaching, type of player that was recruited, other? What are your general thoughts on this view? Also, shooting is a huge problem with this team. Do you think it's a talent issue, or are they not getting good/open shots?
Where do you want to start?
Let's start at the beginning. Is
I
it
would
coaching,
say-
type of player that was recruited, other?
I would disagree with the fact that many of these guys have regressed. I think Justin Hamilton is doing. We'll start there. I think Justin Hamilton's doing exactly what he did at the end of last year. He for the latter half of last year, he started to play a lot better. I think I don't remember him finishing the year on a super, super high note. And he came into this year with, I had high expectations of what he was going to do if he was working on his body and working on his jump shot, but he's produced in small sample sizes. So I wouldn't say regressed. I'd say he's exactly where he is at the beginning of the season. JP Mormon has regressed from last season. Maybe. I don't know if regress is the right word though. Like he's had games where he's played really well. He was a big part in the Owls getting off to a really good start in the beginning of the season. I think he's a good off-ball defender. He's got a high basketball IQ. The biggest thing I'd say is his jump shot just isn't there. If the three's not falling, and is that enough to say that he's regressed? I don't think so. But he's not as much of an offensive threat. I think he can still bring a lot to this team. He's not always the strongest with the ball, but at JP Mormon's peak, he's still a really good basketball player. You talk about the Moores, Damian Moore, we have talked about it before. He's probably should just be on the bench. He got good minutes with Dre Perry. He's gotten good minutes with Dre Perry out, and I would wholeheartedly disagree with saying Quentin Rose has gone anywhere near regress. I think he's improved. I think he's in a bigger role, and the spotlight's really on him. Last year when he didn't have good games, it didn't matter because Shiz Alston had a good game. Now, if Quentin Rose has a bad game, it's all on him because he's got to be the guy.
Yeah, with Q, I just think he is what he is. I know that sounds like a cop-out answer, but he's going to have some brilliant moments. He's going to have some maddening moments.
He had a triple-double this year.
Yeah, I mean, JP has taken a step back. I think with JP, when they're running less and he can just camp out and take a shot. I mean, JP Mormon does not have bad form on his shot. The problem is I think he just gets lost when, again, they did it against a St. Joe's program that is drastically rebuilding. But that was like the blueprint of what they wanted to do. I mean, they just, Nate is shutting down Ryan Daly. They're throwing the ball inside to Jake. They're turning defense into offense and just absolutely straight up routing and dominating them from start to finish. JP, he's gotten stronger. I think a lot of these guys have benefited from Brady Welsh, but like JP's not really like a up and down the floor type of guy. He doesn't have a broken shot. I don't know if it's confidence with him, but yeah, statistically, he's taken a step back. I do not think Dre Perry has regressed. I think Dre Perry, I think, has progressed. I think he's actually progressed. Jake doesn't apply. You didn't have him last year. Nate's regressed in the sense that I think he's not finishing nearly as well around the rim, although has a nice game against Cincinnati. Comes out.
Handful of these guys are like their offensive production has regressed a little bit since the beginning of the year because they came out so strong. But I wouldn't say that their whole game has regressed from top to bottom.
Right. Jack also says here, shooting is a huge problem. Do you think it's a talent issue, or are they not getting good open shots? The staff was concerned about the shooting heading into the year. JP doesn't have bad form. Q's shot is a hell of a lot better than it used to be when he first got here, when he was literally bringing the ball up from his waist. I think Damian Dunn's one of the better shooters on the team, but I don't think he's going to play the rest of the year. Josh Pierre-Louis is actually a better shooter than I thought he was going to be. He's actually knocked down a few threes. But yeah, they knew that shooting was going to be a concern. That's why they went out and got a player like Quincy Adamakoya from Georgia, who I think is really going to impress people when he gets to Philly. But I think they've gotten some good open shots sometimes. I know it sounds like, great analysis here. They just haven't knocked them down. But I don't think any of us had the impression that they were going to be a good shooting team coming into the year. I'm not saying fans have to like that. I'm not saying that fans should be rejoicing in that. I get why they're upset. It hasn't been a great product on the floor recently. 6 out of their last 7 are losses. There have been some very frustrating moments. Saturday seemed to encapsulate so many of them, but I don't think this is a situation where this was supposed to be a spread the floor. You have 4 or 5 dead-eye knockdown shooters and they've all regressed. If that's the case, I feel your frustration even more, but I'm not surprised the shooting's been an issue. The problem is they're getting to the foul line in stretches, but not consistently enough. And Saturday was just bizarre, the amount of open shots that they missed.
It was bad. I think there's a strong – I mean, you're right that their shooting hasn't been what they want it to be this season, but I think at least some chunk of it is they're not getting the shots they want. And that's my biggest curiosity is what do they look for in the half court? Because there's either no movement, the pick and roll doesn't create much of anything, whether that's the ball handler's fault or the screener's fault.
I think part of it, sorry to cut you off.
You're good.
So when Jake Forrester's off the floor and he's gotten into foul trouble, and he has, they just take a significant. You watch Damian Moore try to set picks, and I hate. You know what I mean, man? It just doesn't work. He's just too long and wiry, and it just doesn't. I mean, don't you think they take us? If they try to do anything in the pick and roll with Jake Forrester off the floor, it's not working. And I think that's been an issue, and that's a depth issue, and that's a talent issue, and it's on Aaron. I will say this at least a few times throughout this podcast. The 2020 and 2021 classes will define who they are moving forward. I'm sure a lot of people can say that, but like with this last scholarship that's available in this class, if I'm them, I'm looking for either a spring big that's available that can just rebound and score around the rim, or I'm looking for a grad transfer guy that's ready to play right away and make a difference. I don't think you should build your program off of transfers, but Houston's gotten help from transfers. Some other, Tulane's really had to use a lot of transfers to become somewhat relevant again. But yeah, in the pick and roll game, nobody, everyone else just looks clumsy setting picks in the pick and roll game. Would you agree?
Yeah,
with
no,
that?
Nobody really runs the pick and roll on this team very well.
Yeah.
I think Jake Forrester is a guy that can set a good hard screen. Then your problem is because other teams are they're not tough screens to guard because they do the exact same thing every time. They're going to come off the screen. They're either going to use it or they're not. And they're not even hedging. Other teams aren't even hedging it that well. No. They're just dropping back and kind of because most of these guys on the team are not a threat in traffic from mid-range.
Right. Yeah.
And when that happens, it's super easy to guard.
And I think the one guy who is a threat, and he's kind of talked about this, like Q is a threat in mid-range. And he said, a couple weeks ago, he's like, you asked that question. He's like, I like the mid-range game. Shooting threes really isn't my game. I'll do it.
Next game, he hits 4 threes.
Yeah, and he'll do it because it's necessary. And again, his shot has gotten a lot better, but
he
is
long,
a better
he
mid-range
can rise
player.
over guys, and he can knock down a mid-range shot.
I'd love for his sake. I know, again, it sounds like I'm going to die on this hill. I still don't think Monty Scott's a bad basketball player. Now, he's got it. Let's see how...
Not getting any disagreement from me.
Let's see how much. Hopefully, for his case, the answer is not at all. But missing that layup. I don't know Monty well enough to know how much that affects his psyche. I mean, he was right there. I'm not saying it lost him the game, but would have put him a step closer to winning the game.
If anything, I think Aaron McKie knows how to handle that. Just as someone who's played through every level of basketball.
He's gonna be again like Aaron was
trials
not a guy.
And tribulations.
Aaron was not a guy who was going to come into this situation. He's not brand new. He played at Temple. He's been here as an assistant. He's not going to come in and say, we're young. I love the upbeat nature of this team. We've got a lot of young guys fighting for minutes. Aaron's still going to come in. There was a sense, you could hear it. There was a sense of frustration in his voice today. He was like, but I've played this game. I know what it takes to win. And I'm paraphrasing there. He's still going to come in with a bit of a chip on his shoulder where there's going to be this finding that fine line of like, I want to wrap my arms around you, but I'm also going to get frustrated by some of your mistakes. I think he's like that with Josh. He's like that with some of these other guys. And you can in the doses of practice that you can see, he stopped them a couple times today near the end of practice, working with Josh, toughening him up. And he said, guys, and coming out of one play, stopped him. You're heading up the floor. If you put, this is basic stuff. Obviously, this is not like super like inside basketball type of stuff. I think he pulled Josh aside. He's like, you're getting the ball up the floor. The second you put your head down, only bad things happen. You got to look up and see the floor. And, you can see the guys. And again, I'm not sure they're saying this. They're almost kind of looking at him saying like, yeah, I know, coach, but they're not doing it. But he's going to get on guys like that. A couple weeks ago at practice, I saw him getting on Ty Strickland really hard. Ty is sitting out this year as a transfer. On to the next play, Ty. On to the next play, like trying to toughen him up. And I think that's going to be his style. I think he wanted to come in, win this year, and maybe 10% of him's like, yeah, we're young. We're blending some young pieces, some new pieces, but damn, I want to win. And again, when you get off to a 4-0 start and you almost beat Maryland, he'll say, we're right there. And a fan might listen to that and say, enough. I don't care. You're not right there. But I can understand why he says some of that, but I don't know. Definitely, again, I get the frustration of Jack and a lot of fans, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with the opinion that everybody has regressed. I think some people have progressed. But
I agree.
Again, we'll see if they get
But
themselves out of this.
in a lot of ways, if this team is going to play their best basketball and they're going to win games and they're going to make a run, some kind of run in the end of the season, they need every single guy that's playing. Their strength is in their numbers, but they need every one of those guys to have a good game.
Yep. Yeah.
They don't have a guy they can just lean on if everybody else is playing poorly.
No, that's asking a lot. Next question. This is football related. Comes from West Coast Al. Where are we in the recruitment of Elijah Turner and Kenny Tracy? There are two unsigned, uncommitted running backs right now. Don't get the sense that Temple's involved with either one of them anymore. I don't think Elijah Turner or Kenny Tracy. I think they were out of it with Kenny Tracy before signing day the first time around in December. Again, we'll see how things go next month. I think they sign one or two guys at most, see what kind of roster attrition is there. Maybe they add a grad transfer or late pickup in May over the summer, but I would not, West Coast Al, I would not expect either one of those guys to end up in a Temple uniform. I understand that people want to see more backs coming in, but I don't think either one of those guys are going to end up at Temple. Next question from the message boards comes from Mike TB31. Who has the advantage in the Temple-Miami game? Talking football here. Temple knowing the tendencies of Q, Quincy Roche, or Q knowing the strategies and probably some signals of our offense?
That's a really tough, interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
So they play on opening day, starting in when's the first game?
Late August.
They play in Miami, and a lot of it is Quincy Roche. Yes, he knows this defense. He knows their schemes, but they're going to have a brand new front seven. They lost a lot of guys, whether that be to transfers, to graduation, whatever. They lost a lot of guys. I think they're gonna show very different schemes, both because it's new guys and like they have different strengths, different weaknesses. They're gonna do new stuff, but also because they're going up against a coach that coached here for 18 days and maybe learned something in that 2.5 week span, but also a guy like Quincy Roche, who they also have to figure out how to stop or how to slow him down.
Yeah, I mean, you can be sure that these coaches aren't stupid. Even the most basic of coaches would know that they're going to have to switch things up in terms of their line calls and protections when they're lining up against Quincy Roche. I think the slight advantage goes to Temple in that they can adjust things, they can adjust calls, but the tough thing is like, okay, Isaac Moore, you got to stop him, or okay, Donnie Klein, you got to stop him, depending on where he ends up. Those guys faced him in practice, but he's a good player, lining up on what could be a pretty good Miami defense with another good defensive end on the other side of the line. So, but interesting question to ponder. I'm sure Rod Carey is probably like, and we might have said this last week, like, dude, you got to be kidding me with the storylines. He plays, he coaches against Jeff Collins and Georgia Tech in the first game, and again next season you're going to be opening up at Miami. You're going to be playing against and coaching against Rutgers, who now is Fran Brown, and both those guys will probably have
make for an interesting story.
Yeah, both those guys will probably have a healthy chip on their shoulder as well. Next question comes from the message board as well. Latin Flow is the screen name. Looking at the Temple football recruiting Twitter handle, they share where the coaches have been going to recruit. In the 5 updates, the farthest they've gone south is South Carolina. Is the staff not going to Florida, or are they planning on going down later this month? Unless I missed an update that they did go down to Florida. Good question. I'm sure they're going to recruit in Florida. Maybe they just haven't gone there yet. If you do follow the Temple football Twitter account, it's pretty cool, pretty entertaining.
They have a lot of cool graphics.
They have the memojis, and they show you where the guys are going, and then you can click on that little audio file, and it's like, hi, I'm Jeff Knowles. I'm looking for the next generation of future Owls, and so some pretty cool stuff. And again, like, I remember when Rod Carey came in. Oh, well, I know we said that Jeff Collins was over the top with branding. They're going to have no social media presence with this new coach. He's too meat and potatoes. Like,
yeah.
Relax. They are doing stuff like that. Now they just got to go out and get the players. I would be surprised if they didn't dip into Florida, but maybe they don't recruit as much in Florida, but maybe they recruit more in Indiana and Chicago, and they get another Demerrick Morris out of Chicago or something like that. But just because... And again, I get that it's a good question. I think this is what lets fans in. You see the visibility, but then they want more, they want more, they want more. I think just because you didn't see it on the Twitter account doesn't mean that they're not going to go into Florida, but we'll see what happens there. Next question. This is an interesting one. It comes from Vanter. I don't know if we're pronouncing. He's asked questions before. In a desperate effort to stave off further irrelevance, Temple has awarded the Owl Scoop staff
with
ephemeral unilateral power. Your task as a team is to identify 3 changes effective immediately with the goal of improving the state of the athletic department. What changes are we making?
I'm going to let you start with this one.
This is a fun one. Give them unlimited spending power on recruiting so you can get Aaron McKie and a jet to fly all over the place.
Mm-hmm. How far do they go for recruiting, both Temple football and basketball?
Well, I mean, in football, they've gone as far as Florida. They've gone as far
they go out
west
west
as
at all?
Not so much. I'm trying to think the last time they went. Well, I mean, Matt Rule got T.J. Simmons in that one recruiting class. I don't know if they ever actually went out to California to watch him play. He was a former UCLA commit. But fly him out all over the country, internationally. If you didn't get a kid like Santi Vescovi, who's now at Tennessee mid-year, get him on a jet more. Increase the recruiting budget. Increase their budget to offer even more for cost of attendance stipends.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when kids are if you're recruiting the right way, legally, which not every school does, kid comes on campus and coaches can say, all right, here's how much money you can earn between your Pell Grant, your scholarship, and your cost of attendance stipend. So this is all just like, not all, but most of it on money. Like, jack up the recruiting budget, give them more to spend on cost of attendance stipends, and maybe I want to run this by you, again, money is no object feasibility study on how you can get more fans in the seats and buck not just a local, but a national trend on why college attendance is down. It's not just happening here. It's happening all over the place.
One thing I was going to say, which kind of goes along the similar lines, and it's very much not practical right now, but
this isn't supposed to be a practical scenario.
Somehow, in a matter before the 2020 Temple football season starts, is to get a college stadium in the city of Philadelphia without knocking out hundreds of families from their homes. Somehow, if you could not have any negative to the situation, but be able to create a college stadium that's near, because the Liacouras Center does pretty well on good games.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll get at least the lower row. That'll get that kind of packed on good games. I'm sure the Villanova game is going to be packed to the brim with Villanova fans too. But the accessibility of the Liacouras Center compared to the Lincoln Financial Field is a huge.
Well, now
difference.
we're dipping our toe into the stadium debate. You do realize though that what they've outlined, and again, these things are not determined by people like myself. If they get a stadium on campus, unless something changes drastically, nobody's being displaced. Now, I shouldn't even say that. Nobody is literally physically being displaced from their home. Okay. They're not knocking down homes to do it, but I do understand. I understand. I've said before, if I was still living in South Philly and then the Philly said we're plopping a stadium down at 13th and Snyder, I'd be like, oh my God, parking's going to be a nightmare. Yeah. So I don't live in North Philly. I haven't lived in North Philly. I'm in no way, shape, or form trying to invalidate the opinions of the longtime residents here, but they're not going to literally be bulldozing over homes to
so
drop
where would they
the stadium.
even put it?
Oh gosh, well
I could be asking all this with a lot of ignorance, but
either side of Broad Street potentially. It's not another conversation for another time, but I do agree that
it all comes down to
stadium.
Money.
Well, again, it's a huge
for these
problem.
Changes, I mean,
you're a student here. We've talked about this now. We've heard so many students say that they'll hop on the bus. They don't go into the game. They go to FDR Park to party because they can't party in Lot K. But what's Temple going to do? Allow underage people to just get super drunk in Lot K, and it becomes a liability issue. But they've won more. They've sent more players to the NFL. Yes, when they started off 7-0, beat Penn State. College game day comes to town. That was unlike anything I've ever seen, but I think that would go into a feasibility study. How do you increase attendance? How do you get a stadium on campus? And doing it, no one's ever going to be completely happy with what you do either way. If you have a stadium, if you don't have a stadium, where do you put it? But some sort of money is no object feasibility study. It's here's how you address the needs of the community. Here's how you address the needs of the program. Here's how you address the needs of the fan base and make everybody happy. I know it's impossible, but...
And we talked about it before. You get a top 10 recruit, things change around here. In any sport, you get a top 10 recruit in the nation. That changes things.
Yeah.
In terms
I don't know
of
if they're
relevance.
ever going to get...
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't think
either the football or basketball programs are going to do what's necessary to get a top 10 recruit, which is oftentimes... throwing a bag out there, doing some... Yes, cheat is the more pointed term for it. So that's an interesting question there, though. Definitely a one that scratches our brains where they itch.
Didn't see that one coming.
Next question comes from Diamond and Broad. Can you each address how much of a rebuild and rebrand the basketball program actually needed? Some things I'm reading make it sound like we should have expected McKie to win 20 games this year. And he has 2 more questions. Let's address that one. We've kind of already addressed that. I do think to me, it's not so simple, but like, I don't think Aaron has the pieces to play the way he wants to play. And I'm really not trying to take shots at the current roster, but again, I just don't think, and people will say, well, I don't get it. That doesn't hold water with me. Aaron's been an assistant on the staff. He knew it was coming. It's different when you're the head coach. He wants to play like Houston plays. He wants to play the way like Florida State plays, and he doesn't have all those pieces yet. Now, it's absolutely incumbent upon him to get those pieces. And again, 2020, 2021 is really going to define who they are moving forward. I'm not saying they're going to go out and get 4 McDonald's All-Americans. That's just not how this program is built. It's not how Philadelphia basketball is built. I am going to make a huge blanket statement here. I'm sure there are a lot of good AAU coaches in the city, but a lot of them have other interests in trying to get kids out of the city for a variety of different reasons. So Aaron needs to get players wherever he can get them, whether they're like Quincy Adamakoya and they're coming from Georgia, or they're Jaleel White and they're coming from Wildwood and the Jersey Shore, or if they're from the DMV. I don't care where you get them. You got to get them. I don't think he has enough pieces to play the way he wants to play. So I do think it's a little bit more of a rebuild. Now, again, when they started off 4-0 and they almost beat Maryland, sure, I'm sitting there. I wasn't at the game. I'm sitting there as I'm smelling turkey and taking secret spoon swipes of my mother-in-law's incredible stuffing and saying, oh, these guys could be better than I thought. But, I think we've all been, as reporters, if you're a fan out there, you've seen the ups and downs. And they beat Wichita State. Oh, maybe they're back on track. I still think it's more of a rebuild than people think, but you're not going to hear Aaron say that. And I don't think he necessarily believes that, but I think he knows he doesn't have enough pieces.
That was perfectly poignant, John. I will say...
The stuffing part?
Specifically the part about the stuffing. Yeah. But, the only thing I'll say is coming into the season, the way they ended last season, although they lost to Belmont in the first 4, felt like a high note. It felt like Nate's going to take a step up. Quinn Rose is going to take a step up. Mm-hmm. Justin Hamilton's going to take a step. Like, every guy ended the season feeling with that, creating that feeling and that narrative of they're going to do something more next season. Aaron McKie comes in. He talks about he has really high hopes. And granted, I would hope he has high hopes coming into the season, every preseason. But you're right. They don't have the pieces to play the way that he wants to play. But in the beginning, it kind of felt like he did. Yeah, if Alani Moore was a confident senior point guard that was hitting, averaging high twos in terms of 3-pointers per game, if Nate Pierre-Louis getting around 3 steals a game, getting like 8 points in transition, and Quentin Rose is extending his game, knocking down the 3 with some consistency, JP Morman's hitting it, and they're really turning defense into offense. Jake Forrester is helping this half-court set so much so that he's making guys around him better. The screen and roll is working. They're forcing turnovers. They're getting out on the break. We've talked about it before. It's a weird team. They got a lot of weird pieces. If they can make all that happen, then yeah, this could be a 15-win team, 16-win team. But they're not, because they're not playing like that on a consistent basis. You've mentioned before that St. Joe's game. That's what they want to do on any given night. They want to turn that defense into offense, and they want to make things happen. They want to play flashy. They want to play fast. They want to space the floor. But it's been tough, and they haven't been able to do that.
Yeah. 2 more questions from Diamond and Broad. Any updates on Temple's non-agreement with the link for next year? I'm not in on these conversations. I will never be in on these conversations, but I would advise people to relax on this. I will be utterly, utterly, utterly shocked if Temple's not playing football at Lincoln Financial Field next year. Final question from Diamond and Broad. Why is the sound system at the Lee Core Center so poor in the upper deck? No clue.
No idea.
Not my purview. Wish I could help you out there.
That could be one of the things we're changing about the
Inventors,
Temple Athletics department.
Temple's Athletics rebranding or re-envisioning of the athletic department. But can't help you out there. Al-I-89 from the message board asks, I've stepped back from the ledge. McKie gets 3 years. I'm hopeful he'll do it. Maybe some conversation on the recruiting prowess of the staff. There is no Fred Hill type or AAU coach. Fred Hill was a former assistant at Seton Hall. Where was he an assistant?
I can look it up, but I'm
where was Fred? Oh no, he was on Jay Wright's staff. Why do I want to say Seton Hall? He was a move the needle AAU or high school coach or assistant coaching hire. So he's saying there's no Fred Hill type or AAU coach, so I'd like to get your guys' thoughts. Yeah, again, I'll say it again. I said
Assistant
I was going to
coach
say
for Seton Hall.
Yeah, it was a Seton Hall.
Previously been a head coach at Rutgers.
All right, that's right.
His father is the Rutgers baseball coach. and
Yeah,
his
so
uncle
North Jersey
is a former NBA coach.
Yeah, a North Jersey guy who kind of moved the needle with recruiting. And again, like I think we talked about this. We were talking about this at the end of last year when Aaron put together his staff. You can like this, you can hate it, you can feel somewhere in between. When Aaron assembled his staff, I think it was Aaron really saying, I'm really counting on myself here. Jimmy Fennerty works really hard. You talk to a lot of people and they say he's a young guy, but he's a future head coach. But he was on Lafayette's staff, not a veteran recruiter, not a veteran recruiter at all at a high major level. Chris Clark has been on the staff before, played at Temple. I think he's a pretty good recruiter. But Aaron didn't bring in anybody from outside of his comfort zone, and a lot of coaches do that, to be fair. Monty Ross, former head coach. Monty's the guy who you bring in as a former head coach who did have a couple of quality seasons at Delaware, but he was familiar with Monty. He's known him his whole life, or most of his life. Chris, he's known. Chris kind of helped him with the transition. Jimmy's a young guy who we wanted to give a shot. But yeah, I mean, Aaron's got to be the guy, and I don't think that Aaron just thought he was going to come in and guys are going to walk in the door just because he's Aaron McKie. I think he knew what he was getting into, but the recruiting prowess of the staff, I think it remains to be seen. I think Jaleel White's a pretty good player. I think he's going to come in and contribute next year. I don't think he is a super quick twitch athlete. I think he's more of a smooth, larger point guard / point forward. He's putting up some pretty good numbers. I haven't had a chance to see him play live yet this year at Wildwood Catholic. I'd love to get out to one of his games. We'll see. I know at the beginning of the season there was still some soreness in his knee coming off that meniscus. Down to the shore, yeah.
I would so be down for that.
Hit the Garden State Parkway and hopefully avoid some traffic. He's been having some really good games, but again, I think he's more like Marty Collins than Jameer Nelson, or even like a Josh Pierre-Louis on this team. I know Josh has a lot of basketball left ahead of him, but he's not super, super explosive, but he's just very smooth, very savvy. Quincy Adamakoya, haven't seen him play live yet, but it sure looks like he's having a hell of a senior season and can shoot the living crap out of the ball. But again, these next two classes are going to define them. So can they go out next season? They just offered Eric Reynolds, a 4-star recruit in the 2021 class from the Bullis School down in Potomac, Maryland. He's 94th nationally in the 2021 class, according to Rivals. Can you get a Stevie Mitchell out of Wilson Westlawn? The entire staff went to go see him on Monday night. They'd love to get him. His mother played basketball at Temple. He's a terrific player. Can you... I think
that's another point guard to the rotation.
Yeah, but he's a little bit taller than Josh.
Okay,
could probably play. I mean, either one of those guys. And there's a question about this later on in the mailbag. I think either one of those guys could play on the ball or off the ball. I think they're more ball dominant guards. But Steve is a terrific player. Can you get him to commit? Can you fend off growing interest from Michigan, from Marquette, from Villanova? Eventually, you're going to have to get one of these guys. Can you get? I don't know. I think Jalen Morley's probably a reach, 4-star guy from West Town. I know you have some ties there with Jake, but he's 50th nationally in the 2021 class. Can you get it to Taquan Woodley from Camden? Not ranked right now in the Rivals 150 for 2021, but a super tough, powerful 6'8" forward. Is Rick Brunson going to help you out there? Try to help keep him local? Or is he going to want to leave the area, go to a program like Penn State? Penn State finally is clicking under Pat Chambers. We'll see if they can keep that going. But you got to get a couple of these guys or players of their ilk because, again, just like we said, to the point we were talking about before, I don't think he has enough guys to play the way he wants to play. Yes, you can have some undiscovered gems, but you can't have too many of them. Recruiting has to improve. Again, we'll see what kind of an improvement is made. We'll see what kind of steps these guys made. But so recruiting prowess of the staff, again, I think it remains to be seen. Again, I think people feel much better about the recruiting prowess of the staff if Quincy Adamakoya can shoot the crap out of the ball in college just like he did in high school. So we'll see. Great question. It's at the forefront of everybody's minds. We'll see what happens. 3 more questions. A few more questions to get to from a couple different people here. What TU from the message board? Kind of football, kind of basketball question. How would you compare Isaiah Wright and Quentin Rose's careers? Both had very high potential at times, and other times both appear to have not reached it fully, especially after the senior year of Wright and seeing Rose struggles to be the number one offensive option this year.
You want me to take it?
Yeah, we'll both take it. What do you think?
I think they're different people.
I do too.
I think at the end of the day, they're different. It's hard to... You're comparing apples and oranges. Not necessarily that has anything to do with the sport. It more so has to do with the kind of person they are. Isaiah Wright didn't play because of whatever off-field stuff that they didn't want to talk about. Quentin Rose, maybe the person asking the question thinks that he hasn't lived up to his potential because he entered his name in the NBA draft, twice now and hasn't gotten selected. He's come back to play another season and finish out his career at Temple. But Quentin Rose is a very good basketball player who has had moments of lapses in possessions or games, hasn't had great games. He played behind Shizalson last year. Now he's more on the forefront. This is his team. He's the guy with the ball in his hands in the final minute, whereas that's the other thing. It's a different sport. The way you are, what you bring to the team in football, Isaiah Wright is a wide receiver. He's not the quarterback, and even Anthony Russo isn't the whole team. It takes a lot of guys, whereas Quentin Rose can take over a game on any given night and propel the team to a victory. At the end of the day, they're different people.
Yeah, I agree with you. I get the sentiment because Quentin Rose can be maddening. Isaiah Wright can be maddening, but I think it stops there. Isaiah Wright's production literally almost dropped off the face of the earth. After that SMU game, he was never the same. They had 7 drops in that game. 2 of them came from Isaiah Wright. And again, like you mentioned off the field stuff, I want to be careful. Isaiah Wright was never suspended. As far as I know, never got into any disciplinary stuff whatsoever. I've talked to him so many times in my career, never treated me with anything other than kindness and professionalism. I wish him well. But his production drastically dropped off. And for fans who want to direct their frustration at the coaching staff, that's fine. You have that right. I can guarantee you that the coaching staff, I'm sure any coach would say, yeah, protect your body, protect your livelihood. He was not coached to run out of bounds all the time. He was not coached to fair catch the ball all the time. In certain setups, in certain situations in the game, sure. But his production absolutely dropped. I was told by several sources that I very much trust on this issue that Isaiah had issues with, how many times he was getting the ball last year at Houston when Rockwell Armstead rushes for 5 touchdowns. All these guys can have their varying levels of engagement or frustration with the coaches. You're not getting as much of that out of Quentin Rose. Yes, I realize that we've said a million times on this podcast, 1 minute he can look like an NBA player, next minute he can fade in a tough situation in the game and drive people nuts. But I have never gotten the indication. I mean, when was the last time, again, this team has lost 6 out of its last 7 games, but you can't say that Quentin Rose's production has all of a sudden just dropped into the toilet.
Yeah,
I think that's where it stops. I get it. I get the angle that's trying to be played here, but I just don't. It doesn't. To me, the comparison ends there. Yes, they can both kind of be mercurial players, but Q keeps his production going. Yes, he has good games, he has bad games, but Isaiah dropped, man. I wish him well, but I think he's had some little micro issues with every single coaching staff. He had it with Matt Rule's staff. He had it with Jeff Collins' staff. He had it with Rod Carey's staff. And he went down. He flashed a couple times in the Shrine Bowl practices and then didn't record a single stat in the game. I fully realize in college showcase games that what you show in practice can be just as important as what you show in the game, but didn't catch the ball. Didn't play that much in that game. So it's kind of been up and down with him. With Quentin Rose, you still have a lot of basketball left ahead. Well, he might turn it over a few times. And yes, you're going to have to live with the ups and downs, but I think Q's production has been a lot more consistent. That's not to take away from the talent of Isaiah Wright. I hope he gets into the league as an undrafted rookie free agent. He's not going to get a combine invite unless something drastically changes. Do not expect him to get a combine invite. If he gets into the league as an undrafted rookie free agent, fantastic. I wish the best for him, but I think it's an unfair comparison. Green Street Al with a couple questions here. This team can't shoot or rebound well, but the biggest problem is the lack of a true point guard and anything resembling depth at that spot. Agree or disagree, and why?
Agree. They don't have a point guard. They
Right.
don't have a guy that can. I mean, I've talked about it before in terms of I think that Alani Moore can facilitate an offense better than Josh Pierre-Louis, but they still don't have a guy that's really strong with the ball. Can you feel like you can trust with the ball in his hands to bring it up every time? Can rip apart defenses. Can talk his guys through an offense. A floor general. Someone that can shoot the ball. He can be a threat offensively in terms of using the screen and roll. He can shoot at all 3 levels. He can finish inside. They don't have a 5-tool point guard.
No, I agree. And which is why, again, easy for me to say I'd like to see more Josh Pierre-Louis on the floor. See if he can be that guy. He's not going to be that guy in year 1, but do you see signs that he could be that guy in year 2, be even more that guy in year 3? There's a lot of talent there. But I agree. I mean, Quentin Rose is, at one point I was hearing like maybe they'll have the ball in his hands a lot more. Yes, they can have a few different guys bringing the ball up the floor, but absolutely. I think we'd be idiots not to agree with that sentiment. A lack of a true point guard is absolutely hurting this team. And as you pointed out in your story on Jake Forrester, the lack of any quality depth in the paint is hurting them. But imagine, at one point it was like, well, Jake may get his waiver. He may not get his waiver. Imagine what this team would look like if he had not got his waiver. They might be like a 7-win team.
I was going to say 7
this
or 8
point.
win team maybe.
So at least they have that. But yeah, lack of a true point guard, absolutely killing them. Completely agree with you. Related question. I've told my friends I think JPL's future spot is actually at shooting guard, not point guard. Am I way off base here, especially with Strickland coming in next year and White maybe running the point, meaning Ty Strickland, the transfer who's sitting out, who we mentioned earlier in the show, and Jaleel White, who we just talked about from Wildwood Catholic, maybe running the point. We talked about this before we started recording. I think we're in agreement on this. What do you think?
Josh Pierre-Louis, I like him as a ball-dominant point guard.
Yeah.
I think he can run an offense. Again, he's a freshman. You've heard Aaron McKie say it. He's a guy that can facilitate an offense. He's really strong with the ball, and he can finish around the rim, but more importantly, he can get to the rim and then kick it out. He's had a handful of plays where he'll drive to the basket, go up on a guy, and while he's in the air, find a shooter in the corner. He's got great court vision, but he's working through the kinks of a freshman. They've all said it. It happens to everybody. It's Nate Pierre-Louis said it on my podcast before the season started.
Cherry Tribune, check it out.
Coming to the college game, coming to play Division I basketball from playing high school is a slap in the face. And that's what Josh is going through right now. He's working out the kinks. He's tweaking his game a little bit. And Aaron McKie's really trying to help smoothen that transition. At the end of the day, I think Josh Pierre-Louis will be a ball-dominant point guard. But with that being said, you probably know more about Ty Strickland's game and Jaleel White's game than I do.
Yeah, I agree. Totally 150% agree with you. I think JPL is a ball-dominant guard. Could he play off the ball? Sure. Mm-hmm. He's played off, not too much, but again, I think he's a better shooter. I mean, his jump shot got them going at USC, not his drives to the basket. And he had that one drive to the basket right at halftime, and then he came down on his wrist. But his jump shot actually got him going. I'm not saying his jump shot's a finished product, but he's a ball-dominant guard. I think he's more of a point guard than a shooting guard.
He's getting better at settling the ball in tense situations and letting the game come to him rather than trying to be so aggressive and attacking. And that's a lot of what Aaron McKie's
which is why I would like to just see him play more. The more he's in games, I'm not climbing into what I am trying to metaphorically climb into the mind of Josh Pierre-Louis here. I think the more you play him, the less he might be pressing and saying, I got to make the most of these minutes. And he's getting minutes. Obviously, he didn't play Saturday because he was sick. Wasn't even on the bench. I don't even think he made the trip, but I'd like to see him play more. But I agree he's a ball-dominant guard, especially with Strickland coming in next year. I would temper your expectations on what Ty Strickland's going to be. I think he starts the year I don't think he comes in and starts at the point. He's got some ability. He can shoot it. We saw him practice today, running in scrimmages. He's got good shooting for him. But I think he's got his stretches where, again, and I talked to Aaron about him a little bit today, just in casual conversation, and you can, he gets on him too, so he's got his kinks to work out. Played sparingly at Wisconsin. He's got to make the most of this year, but I don't know that, they're just going to hand the keys over to Ty Strickland next year. Jaleel White, different player, taller guy. I mean, you're talking about almost like a 6'7" point forward. But again, like Jaleel's not going to be from the jump like this uber explosive, quick twitch. I got you. I'm one step and I'm dunking on you. Yes, he can handle the ball. He is Wildwood Catholic's point guard. We talked about this on previous podcasts before we started bringing you on the show. Temple was recruiting him as much as anybody else. Then he had the meniscus injury last April, playing in an AU tournament out in Pittsburgh. There were some people who felt like if he didn't have that meniscus injury. He played in a team tournament up at now Jefferson, used to be called Phil U. And if some high major programs saw him running the point for his team, on his AU team, he wasn't running the point as much. For his high school team, playing for Wildwood Catholic, he runs the point. So he can run it, but again, I don't think he's built to just come in right away and be your starting point guard. So I still think that Josh Pierre-Louis is going to get every opportunity in the book to be the team starting point guard, at least at the outset of next season.
This is a total opinionated thing that just kind of came to my mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've never done it, so this is my guess. Coming from the high school level to the college game, point guard is probably the toughest position to come into and be thrown into the game as the guy with the ball in your hands, bringing the ball up the floor.
Sure, and it depends on the type of coaching staff you have. If Aaron McKie, if this program is being led by someone who's a complete outsider and throws his hands in the air, like I said earlier, and says we're rebuilding, it's all about getting young guys minutes, like throwing my hands up in the air.
That's what Ron Hunter said.
Yeah,
and now they look good.
Yeah, like maybe Josh is getting a few more minutes. And again, Josh will get minutes as the season goes on.
Absolutely.
He's not been banished to the bench, but again, I agree with you.
He's been plagued by missed 2 or 3 games with an injury, and now he's missed the Penn game with a
but he's supposed to play tonight against
yeah.
UConn. But again, I agree he's a ball dominant guard. I don't think that Strickland, I think, would be a competent backup, maybe a very competent backup. We'll see. He's still got the rest of the offseason, a strength program to get into, a full summer. And Jaleel White coming in, playing some minutes, as a point forward. We'll see, but I don't think either one of them are built to come in here from day one and take those minutes from him. So that'll do it for today. Thanks again for sticking with us, for listening to the show. Greatly appreciate it. We'll have more for you next week, some more basketball to talk as that February signing day approaches. We're actually next, depending on when we record next week, whether it's going to be Tuesday or Wednesday, we might have a couple of signings.
That'd be exciting.
Signings to talk about. So we'll probably have more football recruiting stuff for you, more hoops, and we'll talk to you soon.